Hey guys, it's Xander here, and we're back looking at brews in Modern. This is a Goblin tribal deck that's also running Experimental Frenzy as a pretty much win con. We've got a couple of different ways to abuse the card and other cool interactions in the deck. So I'm just going to touch on the main board, talk about the sideboard, and interactions between, and hopefully you guys enjoy the video. So we're going to start off the lineup with a 4 of Experimental Frenzy, which is an enchantment of 4, 3 and a red. It sits on the battlefield, and you may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may play the top card of your library, you can't play cards from your hand, and for 4, destroy Experimental Frenzy, so for 3 and a red. We're also playing a 4 of Dark Dweller Oracle, which is for 2. It's a 2/2 Goblin Shaman, so it's tribal, and it's pay 1, sacrifice a creature, exile the top card of your library, you may play that card this turn. So this allows us to filter lands off the top, which is the only other thing that stops Experimental Frenzies. It just helps the deck out, and a lot of the times we've got excess tokens in this deck, so it's easy as hell to do. Running a 4 of Warren Instigator, which is for 2 red. It's a 1/1 Goblin Berserker with double strike, and when Warren Instigator deals damage to an opponent, you may put a Goblin creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. So we're not playing the cards from our hand, we're just putting them onto the battlefield. So this allows us to play an Experimental Frenzy, swing in with Warren Instigator, and then when they take the damage, because it's double strike, first strike damage happens first, and then we can put a creature onto the battlefield, or goblin. Second strike happens with the double strike, and then we can put another goblin onto the battlefield. This can be a 3-for-1 a lot of the time. If they don't just answer it, it's an insanely good card, but it does paint a bit of a target on its head because its ability is so good, but it's a little bit of kind of fun utility and interaction. That's 1 in Goblin Tribal, 2 can abuse the Experimental Frenzy and actually get cards out of our hand so that we don't have to discard, or we can leave Experimental Frenzy up for longer. So it's just something that I thought would be a really fun piece to run in this deck. To help with all of our other goblins and being able to play them cheaper, we're also running a 4 of Goblin Warchief, which is for 3, so 1 and 2 red. It's a 2/2 Goblin Warrior with goblin spells you cast cost 1 less to cast, and goblins you control have haste. This means that we can light the fuse on anything we want to play. If we play anything off the top, it can swing in, and it's just insanely good value. Also on the value side of things, we're running a 3 of Legion Warboss, which is for 3, so 2 and a red. It's a 2/2 Goblin Soldier with Mentor, so when it attacks, a creature with lesser power gets +1 counter. But at the beginning of combat on your turn, you create a 1/1 red Goblin creature token. The creature gains haste and attacks until end of turn. So with a Warchief out, we can play this guy for 2, and then so the turn we play him, we can swing in with him. We'll be swinging in with a 2/2 and a 1/1 that immediately gets a +1 counter. So it just curves out insanely well. If we're playing experimental, like we've got an Experimental Frenzy on the board, and we've got a couple of War Chiefs out, being able to play this guy for 1 off the top of the deck is insane. And it's also insane for Goblin Rabblemaster, which is another 3-cost token generator. But this is like the OG token generation for Goblin decks in the past. So Goblin Rabblemaster is for 3, so 2 and a red. Other goblin creatures you control attack each turn if able, and at the beginning of combat on your turn, you put a 1/1 red goblin creature token onto the battlefield with haste. When this attacks, it also gets +1/+0 until end of turn for each attacking goblin. So this can swing in for huge. If they don't answer it, it's getting us goblins, it's getting us more power on the board. If Goblin Warboss is out when this comes in, it's swinging in with haste. Experimental Frenzy, it's coming off the top of the deck, it's coming out of nowhere. It's insanely good. For more token generation, we're also running a 4 of Mog War Marshal, which is for 2, so 1 and a red. It's a 1/1 Goblin Warrior with Echo, so the Echo cost is 2. So the turn after you play it, at the beginning of the upkeep, if you don't pay 2, then you sacrifice it. Otherwise, you keep it. But the cool ability that's tagged on the bottom of this is when Mog War Marshal enters the battlefield or dies, you put a 1/1 red Goblin creature token onto the battlefield. This synergizes really well, and I'll explain it in a second, with Skirk Prospector, which is for 1 red, a 1/1 goblin with sacrifice a goblin, add 1 red to your mana pool. So the synergy between these two is you play the Mog War Marshal and you get a token, which means you can sacrifice both of them to generate 2 mana, but Mog War Marshal gets another token because it's died, so you can generate 3 mana from 1 Mog War Marshal. Experimental Frenzy out and a Goblin Warchief out, we can play Mog War Marshal off the deck for 1 and generate 3 mana. So we're netting mana whenever we do that with the Mog War Marshal. It's just one of the cool synergies that's in the deck that can often make us ramp out of control, and our opponents can't really do anything about it. Another great finisher in this deck is the 4 of Goblin Bushwhacker, which is for 1 red. It's a 1/1 Goblin Warrior with Kicker 1. So as you play this card, you can pay an additional 1. When it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, creatures you control get +1/+0 and have haste until end of turn. Throw extra mana into it, go in haste. If we haven't got the Warboss out, it's just great. It's an insanely good card. On the topic of insanely good cards, we're also running a 4 of Goblin Guide, which is for 1 red, a 2/2. It's Goblin Scout with haste, and when it attacks, defending player reveals the top card of his or her library. If it's a land, that player puts the card into their hand. Giving our opponent's land isn't great, but it doesn't always happen, and this at a 1 cost, swinging in for 2 damage, it's going to deal 2, 4, sometimes 6 damage before our opponent does anything about it, or it's painting a target on its head, and we're going to be able to play our other important stuff. It being at a 1 cost and haste means regardless of what our board state's doing, if we've got an Experimental Frenzy out, this can come off the top of the deck as well, and it's just good. Another hard-hitting card in this deck is the 4 of Goblin Grenade, which is for 1 red. It's at sorcery speed. As an additional cost to cast Goblin Grenade, you sacrifice a goblin, and Goblin Grenade deals 5 damage to target creature or player. So this gets rid of Tarmogoyfs, this gets rid of a lot of problem creatures that are in Modern, but being able to deal 5 damage for 1 at the expense of 1 of our many tokens, probably, that we're going to have, is insanely good value. And this is another card that we can play off the top of the deck. It's just great. Touching over the land base here, we're running 8 mountains, 4 Bloodstained Mire, which tap, pay 1 life. So this is the whole point of the Bloodstained Mires and the Foothills, is to filter the lands out of the deck so that we're less likely to double up on the lands with Experimental Frenzy. So it's just another synergy that you can get, be able to not have to filter off the top. The other thing we're running in this deck is the 2 of Mad Blind Mountain, which enters the battlefield tapped. It is a mountain, so you can actually fetch for it with the Bloodstained Mire. And it's got pay 1 red, tap, shuffle your library, play this ability only if you control 2 or more red permanents. Goblin Tribal, we're going to be having 2 or more red permanents, so it's pretty well guaranteed that we're going to be able to shuffle our library. This is another backup plan to filter off the top if we keep getting stuck with lands, but yeah, the deck's insanely fast and a hell of a lot of fun. Touching over the sideboard here, we're running a 2 of Siege Commander, which is for 5, 3, and 2 red. It's a 2/2 goblin with, when it enters the battlefield, you get 3 1/1 red goblin creature tokens, and it's also got pay 2, so 1 and a red, sacrifice a goblin. Siege Commander deals 2 damage to target creature or player. So this is added removal, they can ping planeswalkers, more token generation for the deck, being able to warrant Instigator if it gets through, and then double tap Siege Commanders. Insanely good value, leaves a really bitter taste in our opponent's mouth when that happens, but it's just funny. I'm running a 2 of Magus of the Moon, which is for 3, so 2 and a red. It's a 2/2 human wizard that makes all non-basic lands mountains. Kind of a creature, well, it is a creature Blood Moon, so this is for your Tron matchups. It's just a really good card. For the graveyard matchups, we're running a 2 of Tormod's Crypt, which is for 0. It's an artifact that sits on the battlefield. And then it's got tap, sacrifice Tormod's Crypt, remove target player's graveyard from the game. For the artifact matchups, we're running a 3 of Shattering Spree, which is for 1 red, with replicate 1, so you can copy it for every 1 red you pay. Destroy target artifact. So this can annihilate KCI, Affinity, just any of the decent, or Land Control, any of the ones that's running crucial artifacts. Being able to pay 5 mana and blow up 5 of them is insanely good. A 2 of Goblin Pile Driver, which is for 2, so 1 and a red. It's a 1/2 Goblin Warrior with protection from blue. So it can't be blocked, targeted, dealt damage, or enchanted by anything blue. But when it attacks, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn for each other attacking goblin. So as soon as we're going up against a deck running blue, you throw these guys in there, and then it's just a finisher. Basically, it's a really good finisher. For a little bit of gain life, we're running a 2 of Dragon's Claw, which is for 2. It's an artifact that sits on the battlefield, and whenever a player plays a red spell, you may gain 1 life. In a burn matchup, this is something that's really good also, because we're playing red and they're playing red. The amount of life gain we can get off it is often very important. For the low to the ground creature matchups, we're also running a 2 of Anger of the Gods, which is for 3, so 1 and 2 red. At sorcery speed, Anger of the Gods deals 3 damage to each creature. If a creature dealt damage this way would die this turn, you exile it instead. So it's a really good answer for a lot of the tribal matchups or token generating decks that are in Modern. That is Goblin Frenzy in Modern. Like, share, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications to see new videos when I upload them, and I will see you guys in the next video. Good question, guys.